We're glad that you could join us today for today's webinar, Introduction to the New Northwest Heat Knowledge Base. This webinar is made available by the Northwest Higher Education Accessibility Technology Group. Northwest Heat is a joint project of the Orvis Cascade Alliance and NWHeat, the Northwest Academic Computing Consortium. Northwest Heat's mission is to advance our common goal of ensuring that digital services, information systems, learning technologies, and instructional and scholarly resources are equitably accessible to all users. Our overarching goal is to cultivate a community of practice among faculty and staff who support digital accessibility on their campuses. To do this, we provide a series of professional development opportunities like the one today. And we are now sharing best practices and resources through the knowledge base that is being introduced today. If you'd like more information about the work of Northwest Heat and how you can participate, we invite you to contact us at info@northwestheat.org. And you can also communicate with us through the survey that we'll share at the end of this session in our chat. We will take a moment to share a few housekeeping details. This session includes a chat, which means you can submit questions to our presenters throughout the session. Your questions will be addressed during the Q&A at the end of the session. And this meeting is also open mic, which means you will be able to ask questions by simply unmuting your mic to ask your question during the Q&A time. Until that time, we ask that you keep your mic muted. This session includes captioning. Instructions on how to access captioning will be in our chat, so please visit the chat to see those instructions. This session is being recorded. We will send an email notification to all participants when the recording becomes available at northwestheat.org. And now I'd like to turn it over to Hannah, who is our co-chair of Northwest Heat and oversees the knowledge base.
Thanks, Gloria. My name is Hannah LeVay, and I'm also the collection assessment librarian at University of Washington. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speakers today, who have very graciously volunteered to talk about the knowledge base. Stewart Baker is the Systems and Institutional Repository Librarian at Western Oregon University. And Sid Devarenne is a Collection Management and Assessment Librarian at Western Washington University. And I will let them take it from here.
Thank you. So as Hannah said, Stewart and I are part of the Northwest Heat Knowledge Base Working Group, and we'll be giving an overview of the new knowledge base, which is now live on the Northwest Heat website.
So this is our overview of the presentation. First, we're just going to introduce the knowledge base, talk about what it is. We'll talk about the background of the project, where it came from, why it's an idea that we're pursuing. Then we'll look at how to actually get to the knowledge base and access the resources that it has in it, as well as how to submit your own resources if you have them. And then we will wrap things up with a live demo, just a quick look at the website, and then some questions and answers.
The knowledge base is an online library of resources about accessibility. This is a way for member institutions to share best practices, policies, and resources with each other. Each resource is entered in the knowledge base with a brief description and a link to the resource. These resources can be external web pages or file downloads. They're also sorted into categories and tagged with relevant topics. So you're able to search the knowledge base for specific keywords, or you can browse using the categories and tags. Many of these resources were gathered by the knowledge base working group, but anyone can add to the knowledge base. So if there is a resource you would like to share, we have a form that you can use to submit suggestions.
Here's a bit of project background about the knowledge base. This knowledge base is actually about as old an idea as the Northwest Heat itself. And Northwest Heat was formed as a joint working group on accessibility topics between the Orbis Cascade Alliance, or the Alliance, and NWHeat back in 2016. In 2019, there was a member survey, and that survey showed that most members valued the idea of an accessibility knowledge base and also webinars as the highest priority charges for the group. And work on that really kicked off in 2020 and has continued on both fronts today. In 2022, the working group gathered feedback from Northwest Heat members at a couple of live events, both on the Orbis Cascade side and the NWHeat side. And that gave the group those sorts of needs and types of resources that people were interested in seeing in a knowledge base. From there, we built the taxonomy, which is just a list of the categories and tags, like how the information is organized, and started to gather some initial resources so that there was something in the knowledge base when it launched. And then this year, we've been posting those resources and working a bit to refine how the knowledge base works and how it's set up on our website.
The knowledge base is now available on the Northwest Heat website. We have the URL up on the slide here. You can also find a link to the knowledge base at the bottom of the Northwest Heat homepage, as well as in the top menu bar on the website, which you can see in the screenshot on this slide.
So I mentioned briefly the taxonomy. Every resource that's in the knowledge base have two things. They have a category, and these are really broad sort of categories that you can see on that main knowledge base page. And then they also have one or more tags, which are slightly narrower. And you can use both the categories and the tags to browse resources, either from that main page or from a specific resources page. So they're just sort of ways to conceptualize what's in the knowledge base and hopefully to help make it a bit easier to get around in.
So all resources in the knowledge base have been sorted into these categories, which display on the main page of the knowledge base. You can click on the headings for the categories and then browse resources within the categories from there. These categories were chosen based on topics that surfaced in the early discussions about the knowledge base. We have them listed here on the slide with their definitions. And when you go to the links to one of these categories, you will also see these definitions at the top of the page.
So when you view a resource, they should all have something in them. And you can see, like on this previous page here, everything that's listed under these categories, those are some of the example resources. Sorry, my mouse is being really sensitive about changing the slides here. So on this, you can see this example screenshot of a resource called Campus Library Canvas Accessibility Guide. It shows that it is in the category of training and tutorials, and it has a tag of web resources. And both of those, the category and the tag, are links. So when you're browsing the website, you can click on those to see either more training and tutorials resources or more that have been tagged as web resources. And on this page, you'll see that description has basically what the resource is. We also try to put the date that it was created so that you can tell if you're looking at something that's recent or that might be out of date. And then each resource will have one or more links to it in most cases, if they are external websites, or if they are things located on the Northwest Heat website, it might have a link to download that resource or an embedded PDF or something like that.
So if you follow one of those tag links, you can use those to browse in categories or on topics more specific than the main categories. There are currently 7 tags in use, which we have listed on the slide, but more tags will be added over time to capture topics that come up in resources in the knowledge base.
So in addition to browsing the knowledge base, we've also added a plugin that you can use to search it. And Jason, who maintains the Northwest Heat website, was really essential in getting this set up, as well as helping us set up the knowledge base tags and categories. So thanks to Jason there. So this search bar shows up on the main knowledge base page, just below the description of the knowledge base and above all the categories. You can search. This is a full text search, but it won't search the resources. It'll only search our descriptions of those resources. So in this example screenshot here on this slide, I've searched for alt text. That's the text that provides like written summaries of an image for non-sighted users or those with a screen reader or other technology. And that's come up with two results, one that's called Write Good Alt Text to Describe Images, and one that's called Understanding Alternative Text. And both of these show a link to that resource, along with the links to the categories and tags that apply to it.
So because most of the resources in the knowledge base at this point are hosted on other websites, you may run into links that have broken over time. If that happens, please let us know. We have contact information that you can use on the main page of the knowledge base. You'll see on the screenshot, it's that blue let us know link there at the bottom.
And as already mentioned, anyone can suggest resources for the knowledge base. You don't even have to be a part of the Northwest Heat or the Alliance or NWHeat. There is a Google form that's linked on the slide. It's also linked on the knowledge base website. And that form will just ask you to describe the resource you're suggesting and include a link, to add your name and email address, just so we can get in touch if we have questions about it. And there's also a more open-ended question, which just asks if you have suggestions for materials that you think should be in the knowledge base or any other feedback about the project. And this form does also note that if you have a material that isn't online that you'd like to share in the knowledge base, you can email that to kb-team@nwheat.org.
And so the knowledge base is still growing and will continue to grow. Right now, there are pending resources in the accessibility, legal policies, and collaboration categories. So you should be seeing new resources in these categories fairly soon.
Now we're at the live demo slide. So I'm going to see if I can successfully close this. There we go. And I'll make this full screen. So this is the Northwest Heat website, just nwheat.org. This looks very similar to what was on those screenshots. In fact, it probably looks the same. And on this homepage, there are two ways you can get to the knowledge base. The first is this link here in the top menu that says knowledge base. There is also information towards the bottom of the homepage, and you can see that has that link to the knowledge base, as well as the link to contribute your own submission. So I'm just going to click on the knowledge base link in the menu here. And this just has a brief bit of information describing what the project is about. Here's that link to let us know about broken links and to submit resources again. Here's where we could search it. And this page also shows the most recently added resources. I could click on one of these. So if I want to see information about section 508.gov, I can just click that right there, and that will take me to this very basic description of the website, as well as the link to it. And you can see there's also the categories here. So it's in the legal category, and the tags added to it are policies and web resources. If I go back to the knowledge base page down here, there's the categories. So we have collaboration, legal resources, tools, and training and tutorials. There were a lot of resources that we had for tools and for training and tutorials. So those are currently the most filled categories, but we do definitely have some more still for these other sections, as well as the policies one, which I think I haven't added anything for yet. So I will take a look at this list of tools. I'm just going to click on the category name here, and that will show me a little bit more information about what that category is. So you can see it's got tools up here as the header. Then there's our description of tools as assistive devices, captioning tools, PDF accessibility checkers, and other tools. Then there's a list below that. On the left, that's the list of resources. And on the right, there's this list of categories if you want to switch to a different category here. So you can see we have several of these, each with their own tags under the title and the date that it was updated. So if I click on the WebAIM color contrast checkers resources, it's going to show me a bit about why color contrast is important in this case, and also the information about the resource itself, which is from WebAIM, which does web accessibility work in conjunction with the World Wide Web organization. And they have these two different tools to check color contrast. So you could check out these tools if you think they're good, or you could say, you know, I want to see what other web resources are there, and click on that tag up at the top. And then that's pretty much it. It's a pretty straightforward demo. I'll show off the search feature. I'm just going to type in color contrast and hit search. And that's the only resource in there at the moment that's about color contrast, so it popped up. And then if we wanted to submit our own knowledge base resource, there is that link right here, filling out our knowledge base submission form. Clicking on that will take you to this Google form, which tells you a bit about the project. And then it has your answers. Note that this does collect, well, I'm not sure. It does display the email address you're signed in with, but it does say it's not shared. So unless you type in your name and email address here, that won't go to anybody. And I believe that is it for the demo. So we will go back to question time.
So we'll invite people to unmute and ask a question.
Marianne here. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit about plans for maintaining the knowledge base and keeping resources up to date.
Good questions. We did talk a little bit about those at one of our recent meetings. For keeping the resources up to date, that's part of why we added the date in the descriptions so that you can tell if it's like a really old resource or not. And we're hoping that that and the broken link form will stop it from becoming full of dead links. I'm not sure long term what the plan is for maintaining it and adding new resources. I think Hannah might actually be the best person to answer that question.
Yeah, I can jump in. We have talked about a few different strategies, and since it's still so new, we haven't really firmed up our plan moving forward. But I think the one we're leaning towards is doing like an annual review where we would each take one section and just go through it and make sure everything's still good, or look for more updated things if they are out of date, especially the policy or legal areas. Like if standards change, we would need to update pages. Like we might have some resources about WCAG 2.1 right now, but WCAG 2.2 is coming out soon. So we would kind of make sure that everything is still appropriate when that kind of thing happens. I think we were also planning to run a link checker periodically as well. But we do also have plans to add all of the webinars from Northwest Heat to the knowledge base. We're still working on that, but that'll be a nice way to integrate the two sides together and make everything more findable.
I think it's great how you have provided such an easy way for people to submit some suggestions. I'm just also wondering if you could share a few other ways you think we could get involved in supporting this whole effort.
Well, I know that there's a lot of information at everyone's institutions that's siloed away or hidden behind, secure areas. If there's anything in your institution that you can share that we can't find on our own, that would be wonderful, like a policy or something like that. You can submit that, like make it into a document, a separate document, and send that to us, and we can host those documents on the knowledge base. So that way, if you have like a case study or I don't know, anything that would be of interest, feel free to submit that. That would help a lot.
That's really helpful. Thank you. We have another question from Samantha. Do you provide any best practices or guidelines on creating accessible teaching materials?
I know that we have up on the site currently some guides to accessibility in Canvas, and I believe some guides to making accessible PowerPoint documents. I'm trying to remember if there are any pending resources related to that.
Yeah, I was looking through our spreadsheet of items that haven't been posted yet. Most of the ones that are left are actually about like collaborating with accessibility organizations or the legal requirements. So that would be a great area if people know of things to submit resources. We do also have one on LibGuides, which is a library research guide creation system. So if you're a librarian, then that could be something that you could look at. I think more generally, some of the things in the training and tutorials section point to places that might have other resources. So we have, for example, that link I posted there, which goes to the National Center on Accessible Education Materials. And I believe that site has a lot of resources, but maybe not a specific like list of best practices or guidelines.
That's a good place to plug too if you have something you want to find on the knowledge base and you don't see it on there. You can fill out that form and ask for it. We do have people in the group who will find resources that will match these requested areas.
Some of us are librarians, so it's basically second nature to go looking for things when people ask a question.
We'll also lift up a comment that Trina shared. Thank you for creating the knowledge base. If institutions are willing or able to share their accessibility policies and reviews of specific tools, I would find that very useful. So thank you to Trina for that comment.
If no one else has questions immediately, you can always fill out that form if you think of them later, or just email that knowledge base email, which is on the website.
We are also sharing in the chat a link to be able to share your feedback on today's webinar. So that'll be another way to get connected and share your thoughts and find ways that you might want to participate in Northwest Heat. That concludes our webinar today. We thank everyone for joining us. We hope that you found it helpful, and we look forward to the knowledge base building and sharing progress with you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming.